What if I told you that right here in Europe, there was once a country that vanished for 50 years? No war, no collapse, just silence. While tourists soaked up the sun in Greece and wandered through Italy's ruins, Albania, resting quietly between them, simply closed its doors to the world. No one could enter. No one could leave. For half a century, it disappeared from the global stage. The result was one of the strangest social experiments in modern history. A nation perfecting the art of isolation. While the rest of Europe raced into the modern age, Albania pressed pause. Time stood still, its cities froze, its traditions hardened, and its people lived behind walls of fear and secrecy. Today, that silence has been broken, and what's been revealed might just leave you speechless. Beaches once forbidden for generations, Roman cities thought to be legend, mountain villages where medieval blood laws still shape everyday life. This is Europe's ultimate time capsule, a world locked away for 50 years, now finally open. So what happens when a country pauses the modern world for half a century? This is the story of Europe's great disappearing act, and the extraordinary places that refuse to vanish. Long before Albania vanished from the map, it helped shape the world around it through empires, wars, and revolutions. But then, it turned inward, and the world forgot it existed. And the echoes of that lost greatness still rise from Butrint's sunken ruins. Most people today couldn't even find Albania on a map. But 2,000 years ago, it was the opposite. Back then, every major empire in the Mediterranean knew exactly where it was and wanted a share of it. Ships from every shore once sailed toward Butrint, a glittering crossroads where Greek merchants, Roman legions, Byzantine emperors, and Venetian traders all left their mark. This wasn't a forgotten corner of the world. Even the poet Virgil called it Little Troy, the place where the survivors of Troy rebuilt what they had lost. Walk through Butrint today, and you're walking through time itself. The Greeks carved a grand theatre for international crowds. The Romans built a thriving port, with forums, aqueducts, and public baths still standing after 2 millennia. Later, early Christians added a baptistry whose mosaics could rival those of Ravenna. 3 civilizations, 1 city, stacked like layers of history waiting to be uncovered. But here's the twist. Butrint isn't just ancient, it's vanishing. Rising lake waters are slowly swallowing the city. Each season, the lower streets flood, turning Roman avenues into canals and the Forum into a shallow lagoon. Marble columns rise from the water like monuments to a drowned world. There's a haunting irony in it all. A city that once connected Albania to the world now lies half submerged, forgotten by the very civilizations it once helped shape. Today, daring travelers can scuba dive through Butrint's flooded Roman streets, swimming past ancient shipwrecks and relics scattered across the lakebed. It's history you can literally dive into. From Butrin's international past, the road leads north to a city that tells a different story, one not of connection, but of survival through adaptation. In Berat, history doesn't hide in museums. It looks right back at you from 1,000 windows, each one a silent witness to endurance. For more than 5 centuries, Berat perfected the art of survival, not by resisting, but by adapting. Here, Christian churches and Muslim mosques stand side by side, not because tolerance was enforced, but because both faiths discovered that coexistence is stronger than conflict. Ottoman-era homes still shelter Albanian families who've endured empire after empire by bending without breaking. This was Albania's ancient survival code: bend, don't break. When the Ottomans arrived, Berat didn't fight. It transformed. Through every empire, through every redrawn border, families in the Gorica quarter kept living behind the same carved wooden windows, keeping the same traditions alive. Cross the Gorica Bridge, and you step into Albania's blueprint for survival. Inside Berat Castle, families still live within 13th century stone walls, sharing their ancient homes with the Onufri Museum. Byzantine icons have survived 500 years of Islamic rule, and the masterpiece among them, Onufri's Virgin Mary, still glows with golden robes and intricate detail. The city of 1,000 windows earned its name for a reason. For centuries, those windows watched empires rise and fall, and the people behind them quietly outlasted them all. Albania didn't need to vanish to survive. It only needed to adapt. But one day, even adaptation wasn't enough. Those same windows that once looked out on survival would soon stare into silence. To understand how Albania moved from adaptation to isolation, we must climb into the mountains, where an entirely different kind of wisdom took root. At the top of Rozafa Castle in Shkodër, legend whispers of a woman buried alive to keep the walls standing. A sacrifice that, in some ways, Albania seems destined to repeat. Rozafa Castle didn't just need stones for its foundation. It needed faith and blood. According to the legend, 3 brothers built the fortress. But each night, their work collapsed into dust until they made a vow. Whichever wife brought their meal first the next morning would be sealed inside the wall. At sunrise, it was Rozafa. They entombed her. And from that day, the fortress never fell again. It's a brutal story, but it holds a truth at Albania's core: strength through sacrifice. For more than 1,000 years, Shkodër has guarded the mountain pass to the Adriatic. The Romans built it. The Venetians fortified it. The Ottomans conquered it. And each time, survival came at a price. Below the fortress, the old town stretches along Lake Shkodër's edge, linked to the highlands by the ancient Messy Bridge. This Ottoman-era stone arch has carried merchants, armies, and refugees across the Kir River for centuries. a lifeline connecting the fortress city to the mountain clans beyond. Not far from here, the Marubi Photography Museum preserves Albania's visual memory. For 3 generations, photographers captured the country's transformation. Mountain chieftains in silver dress, merchant families in European fashion, and highland festivals that outlived empires. In black and white frames, they captured the last moments of an Albania that still remembered the world, just before the world forgot Albania existed. From stories of sacrifice to something far darker, we now head into the mountains, where survival wasn't just a choice, but a way of life. Up here, isolation wasn't created by politics, it was shaped by rivers, dictated by mountains, and enforced by traditions older than Albania itself. Separation wasn't a rule, it was a way of life. Lake Komen didn't exist until the communist era. When the Drin River was dammed in the 1970s, entire valleys flooded, unintentionally creating what locals now call the Albanian Alps Fjord. The 3-hour ferry ride winds between limestone walls, rising like cathedral towers above turquoise water, revealing untouched valleys that look like Switzerland, just without the tourists. These mountains are both breathtaking and unforgiving. Knife-edge peaks slice into the sky above forests so thick they swallow sound. Waterfalls crash down sheer cliffs into valleys where wolves still outnumber people. For centuries, villages like Theth spent half the year snowed in, surviving from November to April on stored food, thick walls, and traditions older than any flag. Today, you can walk the same ancient trails, and the view hasn't changed. You're stepping into a landscape where time simply stopped. The path from Theth to Valbona crosses the Valbona Pass, opening into mountain meadows filled with wildflowers, glacial lakes reflecting snowy peaks, and stone paths carved by shepherds long ago. At the end of the trail lies the Blue Eye, a spring so impossibly clear it feels unreal, bubbling up through forests older than most European capitals. Step off the trail, and paradise reveals its shadow. Stone towers called kulla rise from the valleys, fortresses built not against invaders, but against neighbors. Here, the Kanun ruled, an honor code older than the mountains themselves. Take a life, and the victim's family must take yours. Simple, brutal, endless. Yet the code had one strange mercy. A home was sacred. Even your enemy could knock on your door, and you were bound to feed him. But once he stepped outside, the hunt resumed. In these mountains, isolation wasn't fear. It was survival. While empires rose and fell in the valleys below, the highlanders simply closed their passes, waiting out history behind walls of stone and snow. But what worked for a mountain village couldn't sustain an entire nation. The communist regime would take this highland wisdom and magnify it, turning Albania's traditional mountain isolation into a full-scale fortress state. The man who engineered Albania's transformation came from a very different mountain world, from the steep stone lanes of Gjirokastër, where one man's fear of the outside world would one day shape an entire country. Gjirokastër isn't a city built on a mountain. It is the mountain, terraced stone homes stacked in perfect grey harmony, some with 9 chimneys and secret rooms hidden behind walls thick enough to smother whispers. They call it the City of 1,000 Steps because not a single street runs straight. Every path twists and climbs through 500 years of Ottoman rule carved into pale limestone. Above it all, the fortress tells the true story, built layer by layer. Byzantine foundations, Albanian expansions, Ottoman reinforcements. Empires came to leave their marks, but the stones endured long after they vanished. Wander the fortress today and you'll find an armaments museum that spans eras. Medieval swords displayed beside captured German artillery, and tucked in a corner, something almost absurd. A tiny Italian Fiat tank, barely the size of a modern SUV. Proof that even Mussolini's war machine had a budget limit. In the courtyard sits a US Air Force jet from 1957, a bizarre monument to Cold War suspicion. It wasn't shot down, it simply made an emergency landing, but the communist regime declared it a defeated spy plane, turning a mechanical failure into a story of foreign enemies lurking at the gates. In 1908, a boy named Enver Hoxha was born in one of the merchant houses below these walls. He left this mountain city for universities in France and Belgium, wrote for newspapers, traveled across Europe for a kid from the Albanian highlands. His life was surprisingly international. 40 years later, that same boy became Europe's most paranoid dictator. The student who once crossed borders freely spent the rest of his life closing them. The young man who gathered ideas from across the continent ended up seeing every foreign thought as a threat. From the mountain city that shaped the dictator, we travel now to the capital, where his paranoia wasn't theory anymore, but national policy. Tirana is where two Albanias meet face to face. Pastel villas standing beside brutalist bunkers, espresso cafes tucked under shimmering glass towers that rise next to crumbling communist blocks. This is a city erased from the world for 46 years, and then thrown back onto the map almost overnight. When Hoxha seized power in 1944, he launched the most radical isolation experiment modern Europe had ever seen. Albania withdrew from NATO, then from the Warsaw Pact, then even from China, until it stood completely alone, convinced that every nation on Earth was plotting its downfall. By the 1970s, Albania had achieved something no other country had: total invisibility. Listening to foreign radio became treason. Private cars were outlawed. Typewriters were registered like weapons to block underground newspapers. Even the beaches were off-limits to Albanian citizens. And Albania declared itself the world's first atheist state, where owning a Bible could send you to prison. Trying to escape meant certain death. But Hoxha's paranoia didn't stop at foreign threats. Inside Albania, the Sigurimi secret police turned neighbors into informants and children into spies who reported on their own parents. Every third Albanian had either been interrogated or sent to a labor camp. With 15,000 collaborators placed in hotels, embassies, post offices, even grocery stores, surveillance became so extreme it bordered on the absurd. If targeting a man, agents might copy his shoes, hide a microphone in the heel, and quietly replace them. Albanians learned to whisper inside their own homes. This wasn't just control, it was psychological warfare. A nation turning inward, where silence meant survival and trust, became a luxury no one dared afford. Outside Albania, the world simply forgot it existed. Step into Skanderbeg Square and you can feel the weight of it. A vast open space designed to make individuals feel small. Skanderbeg's statue rises at the center, the medieval hero overshadowed by the imposing communist buildings around him. The museum's socialist mosaic screams victory, while the square itself funnels crowds like a choreographed march. Even under bright sunlight, the place feels like a stage built for obedience. Just a few blocks away stands Albania's strangest monument, a dictator's mausoleum reborn as a beacon of hope. Built in 1988 by Hoxha's daughter to immortalize him, the concrete pyramid became the most expensive building in communist Albania. When the regime collapsed, so did its purpose. For years it sat abandoned, a graffiti-covered husk where children climbed its slopes and slid down its smooth sides, turning fear into play. Then came its rebirth. Dutch architects transformed the relic into the Tumo Center, a free tech hub where Albanian teens learn animation, coding, and robotics, surrounded by vibrant colors instead of oppressive silence. Where officials once laid solemn wreaths, kids now climb rainbow stairs. At night, the pyramid glows across the Tirana skyline, a monument that once froze a nation in fear, now blazing as a symbol of its future. But while Tirana is learning to move forward, the rest of Albania remains surrounded by what it tried so hard to forget. Across Albania's hills, vineyards, and untouched shores, hundreds of thousands of concrete domes still sit like unhealed wounds. A paranoid vision frozen in stone. There's no avoiding them. These mushroom-like bunkers squat across cliffs and beaches like oversized concrete toadstools, watching a world that never came. Between 1967 and 1986, the regime poured its paranoia into 700,000 bunkers, one for every 4 citizens. For a country no bigger than Maryland, it was an obsession cast in concrete. Most were designed for 2 soldiers waiting out a nuclear war, yet some couldn't survive a farmer's hammer. A fortress network built for threats that never came. The dictator's fear pointed bunkers toward every border: Yugoslavia, Greece, even the open sea. A country bracing for an invasion from all directions at once. When communism collapsed in 1991, 50 years of pressure erupted overnight. Hunger, chaos, and desperation drove thousands to seize any vessel that floated. Many had never seen the world beyond their shores. The cargo ship Vlora, overtaken by desperate refugees, reached Bari carrying 20,000 souls packed aboard like a human tide. After 36 hours with no food or water, some leapt into the sea and swam to shore. For people entombed for half a century, 72 miles of dangerous water felt safer than home. Those who stayed behind inherited a surreal country, a landscape dotted with hollow cocoons of fear. But Albanians did what they always do: adapt. Farmers use bunkers as tool sheds. Shepherds store hay in them. Some became beach bars, tiny art studios, even boutique hideaways. Inside Bunk Art 2, a bunker-turned-museum, visitors say the concrete walls make them feel the claustrophobia and fear generations lived with. Along the southern coast, sunbathers now lean against domes that once scanned the horizon for ghost armies. Built to survive nuclear winter, the bunkers refused to die. So Albania reshaped its past. What once shielded it from the world is now part of why the world comes to see it. Today, visitors sleep inside bunker hotels or wander through these relics of fear. Concrete once meant isolation. Now it means curiosity. From fortresses built to keep the world out, we reach the coast, where decades of isolation left behind something no one expected. At the edge of the map, Albania finally exhales. No longer hidden, no longer muted, simply waiting to be discovered. This is what half a century of isolation unintentionally preserved. Ksamil's shoreline unfurls like a necklace of pearls along the southern coast. Turquoise shallows, pale sand, and 4 tiny islands drifting just offshore. It looks like the Greek islands, minus the cruise liners, minus the crowds, minus the overpriced cocktails. The water is so clear, you can count stones 20 feet beneath the surface. For decades, these beaches were Albania's best-kept secret because soldiers guarded them, watching for invaders who never appeared, accidentally preserving paradise. Today, Ksamil is Albania's quiet revelation. 4 uninhabited islands close enough to swim to, far enough to feel like your own private world. Local families rent out kayaks so you can paddle into nameless coves that don't appear on maps. The farthest islands are twins, divided by a narrow sandbar. Swim out, and you'll have 2 beaches entirely to yourself. And Ksamil is only the beginning. Follow the coastal road north, and you'll see what isolation truly safeguarded. Jeep Beach hides at the end of a cliff-top path beside an ancient monastery. 45 minutes through wild terrain to reach a white stone cove trapped between canyon walls. No hotels, no crowds, just one seasonal cafe and the echo of waves bouncing off limestone cliffs. Farther up the coast, Porto Palermo opens like a hidden stage. a vast turquoise bay guarded by a Venetian fortress marooned on its own tiny island. Inside, the fortress is pitch black. No windows, no light. But climb to the roof and you'll see why every empire once fought for this coast. The bay stretches out in every direction, impossibly blue, untouched by time. In a world where every beach is photographed, every trail mapped, every secret tagged and posted, Albania preserves something rare. Not curated surprises, not staged hidden gems, but the possibility of true discovery, finding perfection that wasn't placed there for you. For 50 years, Albania vanished from the world's story, but maybe disappearance wasn't the magic. The magic is what returned with it. Unrushed coastlines, patient rhythms, and places still worthy of the long journey. This is Albania's gift to anyone willing to seek it, a promise that the world still holds places capable of surprising you. Places that still steal your breath and let you feel like an explorer, not a tourist. The Earth keeps writing. Somewhere a new world is already being born, waiting for us to find it. Subscribe and let's keep exploring the edges of time together.